Welcome to the Real CP Show. I'm your host, CP. And today's topic, Alex Pretti, used as an anti-ICE Anglo adjacent Martyr agenda. But centuries of blatant and ingrained anti-Black Americanism, otherwise known as Black pain. Well, yes. Today is February 25th, 2026. Still within Black History Month. Now, every day, you still have people in higher places within sections of America and higher other places. Why do we need to still have Black American History Month, right? That's wokeism, which is translating is anti anything dealing with Black Americanism and minimizing true history with whitewashing, revisionist type of whitewashing history, right? So the number one people in America who have had the most hateful rhetoric, physically and emotionally, economically, etc., in America's history for centuries, has had the most hate crimes put upon them for many generations, had more hateful codes and policies toward Black Americans than anybody else. But at the same time, you still got people talking about why do we need Black History Month? But they never say anything else about Hispanic History Month. Never say anything about Asian History Month. Or dealing with things dealing with Jewish Americans, Native American History type month. Do you understand this? So in this topic today, relating to this particular white adjacent Alex Pretti, who in the various sections of main media and some other places, they kept trying to portray him as an angelic being, that he was just taken out by some bad demonic ICE agents and stuff like that. But what they failed to make sure by complicitness is to not show also the reality of he was a violent type person, right? On top of that. But again, I'm gonna get to that in a second. But at the same time, I did a show topic on Renee Good. Let me sit there and just in case somebody might not remember who she is. Some people are going to remember this. Some people are not. Renee Good, let me make sure you can see this. Renee Good was a woman from within the predominant-based culture. She also was an extra double minorityness because besides being a woman, she was also considered a minority because numbers of women considered minority, especially numbers of women within the predominant culture considered minority. The ones applies to the one that try to play the game. And then she was part of the alternative lifestyle category under the lesbian category, right? So it's all kind of different programs, all types of sympathy going on left and right with that situation. See how that goes. And so the thing about it is Renee Good and her masculine, rough-looking wife, who is responsible for also the additional outcome of Renee Good's unalivement by the ICE agent because they were sitting there blocking the street and agitationists where ICE agents were trying to sit there and do their duties. But then when the ICE agent was telling her to move out the way and they weren't trying to move out the way, right? And then when she put her car and drive, easily heading toward that ICE agent direction, right? And she turned real fast in another direction, right? And then he unalived her, right? And then people went crazy. Now, if that was a Black American woman that sat there and was in a car with a rough looking masculine type lesbian wife, Oh, they'd have been acting crazy on that. So, oh my goodness. See, look at those black Negro monkeys. Look at that. Look at that black women. They always talking about race too. You see how this goes. So let me sit down and just show you this for a second.
I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you. That's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy.
You see that masculine voice? This is her rough looking masculine wife, right? That's also, again, responsible for the unalivement. Oh, by the way, again, I did a show topic on the Real CP show. As you see, Renee Good used as a martyr for that agenda after being unalived by an ICE officer after driving into the officer, etc. Right? And so the thing about it is, this little disgusting little terminology, they act like they don't see anything. Now here it is. She was Renee Good's wife was responsible for also the unalivement of her wife. But you got people that lost their freaking minds. Oh, look, he shouldn't have shot her. He should have shot Renee Good. After she was sitting there not following lawful orders to get out the way from trying to impede ICE officers from doing their immigration duties. You see how this goes. So you got people just like in this topic today, Alex Pretti, an Anglo adjacent that's used as a martyr, right, for anti-ICE sentiment when he wasn't agitated himself. And the thing about it with him, he got unalived. Watch this again. No, watch this, because he was sitting there trying to protect this woman who has been agitating toward, however, ICE officers. And so the pushing and shoving, and he got her out the way and booked up to the ICE agent. You see how this goes. That's that white savior complex, right? On that situation, which is a whole different topic, because quite a number of women within the predominant culture can't even stand numbers of males within the predominant culture. They just use them, but that's a whole different topic in itself. So getting back to this topic, Alex Pretti was used as a martyr. In general, the definition of a pseudo definition of martyr. A martyr is an individual who suffers persecution, severe suffering, or unalivement rather than death, rather than renounce their religious beliefs, principles, or a cause. Originating from the Greek word martyros, meaning witness, martyrs are often reserved in societies for their extreme sacrifices, serving as symbolic figures against oppression or for their faith. So Alex Pretti was also used as a martyr for pro-border breaking, illegal immigration type of rhetoric. And the thing about it is, there's another sinister ploy on this, because it was like, how dare ICE agents take the life of one Anglo and another Anglo adjacent person? How dare them? Now, if they take the life like they did of Keith Porter, by the way, there's still many people who had not heard Keith Porter. Keith Porter was a Black American man in California. And the New Year's Eve that he was sitting there shooting his rifle in the air of how many uncalculable number of Anglo males, uncalculable number of Mexicanos, quite a number of how many other personnel who would shoot their boom boom piece of equipment in the air. And you don't hear nobody jumping up down saying bullets don't sit there have names on them when they do it. So he was sitting there shooting the air, whatever it is, celebratory, however it goes. Well, the story goes is the ICE agent that was inside that complex, wherever it is, or where it was at, or residence. He came out and basically told him, I guess, to stop firing, whatever it is. They probably got into some argument, and probably as he was probably moving his fire on his boom piece of rifle down somewhere else, the lives came up and said, oh my goodness, the ICE agent said Keith Porter, the Black American man, was pointing at him, and he fired him to death. Do you see how this disgusting game goes? There was no gigantic national outrage for that at all. And I did another podcast on that situation because not too long ago, there was a national something night out for basically pro border break illegal immigrants, entities, people. It was some kind of nonsense stuff that was going on. And they tried to use Keith Porter as if Keith Porter was a martyr for border break illegal immigrants that had nothing to do with that. You have to watch these little disgusting cretin type people, right? On this situation. So again, Alex Pretti, the Anglo adjacent male, was used as a martyr. And like Renee Good, they were fighting like many other various ones within the predominant culture and some other person, even some little off type Black Americans that were smattering of numbers of Black Americans that were lost themselves, the ones that were doing this, that was in there protesting for border break illegal immigrants that wouldn't give a damn about them regardless. So there's some off stuff about some people within certain America that has some truly super psychological off type mentalities. They're fighting for border breaker illegal immigrants that fled, breaking border immigration laws, high numbers of immigration personnel, right? I did podcasts on that where numbers of them became naturalized citizens and numbers of them did it under falsified outcomes on that. And how many of them have programs helping border break illegal immigrants out, helping immigration personnel of getting businesses, direct, indirect. I mean, the list goes on with the freebies they get, right? But you start talking, which is a form of reparations, non-earned reparations, but Black Americans who built this country more than anybody else, besides certain person that was in prominent culture, can't get no reparations or can't get no anti-American Black hate crime law. I mean, the insultingness of this. But like this person right here, let the Negro fight his own battles. His problems are not mine. I don't want to ally with him. Felix Terragina, the white Mexicano American president of LULAC 1956-1960. So you have quite a number of white Mexicanos then and even now. And various other Hispanicism. They have the hatred for Black Americans, right? Because those type of white Americanos, white numbers of Spanish ones applies to, they want to be beside Anglo-ness so bad on that. But again, they expect Black Americans to sit there and fight for the rights of border break illegal immigrants and fight for immigration rights when however number the same person that once applies to, which is quite a number, don't give a damn about Black Americans. Now, what I want to go ahead and get into the topic is also share my screen. Because again, as I was sitting there saying earlier, they're trying to show Alex Pretti as some angelic being, right? But this is one of those things, overall, it was made sure not to talk about. Make sure you can see this. Video shows Alex Pretti in scuffle with federal agents 11 days before his unalivement. Huh? Oh, see, various parts of main media, they didn't want to talk about this, and various other people, including some off versions of within Black Americanism, once applies to, who are just riddled with Black pain so much that it's hard for certain numbers of Black Americans to sit there and get out of, stop trying to fight for other people's rights who don't give a damn about millions of Black Americans. A newly released video shows 37-year-old Alex Pretti confronting federal immigration officers on a Minneapolis street 11 days before he was fatally unalive for being an agitator with the rest of other Anglos and Anglo adjacent and probably a smattering of Black Americans, once applies and some others. In another encounter with Customs and Border Protection agents, a Pretti family representative confirmed to CBS News on that part The representative said the family knew about the incident and that he sustained injuries, but did not receive medical care. They did deny, and any kind of collective family member, this wasn't him, but I'm about to show you this video. The video was recorded on January 13, 2026 and posted Wednesday by the News Movement, a digital media outlet. It shows Pretti confronting federal agents along with other protesters, primarily Anglos or Anglo adjacent, etc. The video was verified by CBS News partner BBS News, and CBS News has confirmed the footage was filmed in Minneapolis. In the video, he is seen kicking. Let me repeat that part. In the video, Alex Pretti, the one they've been trying to show as a martyr, as an angelic being, he is shown kicking and damaging the taillight of a government SUV. The vehicle then stops and federal agents emerge and tackle him to the ground. There appears to be a boom piece of equipment in his waistband, as was also seen in the footage from the day Pretti was unalive. Oh, they want to make sure not to talk about that. The video does not indicate whether Pretti was detained by federal officers following the January 13, 2026 incident. Later in the video, officers deployed chemical irritants in the street as a number of other people shout, honk their horns, or stand around filming the scene on their phones. But when it concerns anti-Black American terrorism, where are these same people at in any kind of big collective? Well, what about George Floyd? How about go to HELL for the ones who play that game? We're not going to play that tactic. George, that was 2020-ish? Huh? So almost 6 years later? Where's the reparations at for Black Americans? Huh? Where's the anti-Black American hate crime bill? Huh? So go to HELL for the ones who play that game. So let me go ahead and play this particular video. And I'm utilizing this as a timepiece purpose and under fair usage doctrine.
This is a moment the news movement filmed on January 13th in Minneapolis, showing a man who appears to be Alex Pretti interacting with federal immigration agents 11 days before Border Patrol shot.
Oh, let me go back again, play that part.
13th in Minneapolis. Moment the news movement filmed on January 13th in Minneapolis, showing a man who appears to be Alex Pretti.
Well, and you see he's salivated upon however person, officer, or the vehicle. Oh, they don't want to talk about that part.
Movement filmed on January 13th in Minneapolis, showing a man who appears to be Alex Pretti interacting with federal immigration agents 11 days before Border Patrol shot and killed him.
Oh, you see how they don't want to talk about that part. You see how this disgusting game goes, but I don't think various parts of main media-ness and however other alternative agenda media-ness, and even some smatterings within certain types of Black Americanism, the ones applies to, right? And however numbers pro-border break illegal immigrant entities, numbers of pro-immigrationists, which, by the way, if you sit there combine however immigrationists, be it legal or not, with border break illegal immigrants, they will sit there and bypass the Black American demographics. Do you understand how dangerous that is? And there are still numbers of Black Americans that don't even understand how close of the finishing off of Black Americans are in a collective way.
Our footage was analyzed by the BBC, whose facial recognition technology confirmed his identity to a 97% degree of accuracy. On the morning of January 13th, our team received a tip that federal agents were blocking a street at the corner of East 36 and Park Avenue in Minneapolis. We arrived around 10:15 a.m. We saw observers shouting at the agents as they walked back to their vehicles. When they started driving away, the man kicked their taillight.
See again? They don't talk about this.
They walked back to 36 and Park Avenue in Minneapolis. We arrived around 10:15 a.m. We saw observers shouting at the agents as they walked back to their vehicles. When they started driving away, the man kicked their taillight. An agent then got out of the vehicle, grabbed him, and pushed him to the ground. During the altercation, agents fired tear gas and pepper balls into the crowd. They continued to hold the man down before they retreat, and he walks away. The man in our footage is wearing a similar outfit to what Pretti.
And you see this little feminist right here who don't give a damn about Black American women, by the way, right? And she's sitting there calling her congressional personnel, right? And however, and she coming together with other Anglo women, Anglo adjacent, and immigration women, and tether women, and you get the point. It's in there demanding that however legislating get and demand anti-Black American hate crime bills. Nope. But she's sitting there fighting for border break illegal immigrants. Do you understand how sinister this stuff is? It's almost like numbers of these personnel within certain sections of Panama's culture are infant level thinkers, the ones it applies to, right? They don't understand various immigration type personnel groups and don't give a damn about them. Certainly border break illegal immigrants don't give a damn about them either. And they sitting there fighting for these people's border break illegal immigrants and immigration rights. That is some messed up, silly infantile tactics.
He was wearing on the day he was killed. What appears to be a gun is also visible above his waistband.
Oh, let's not talk about that part.
His waistband.
Hold on.
What appears to be a gun is...
See that right there? That's a boom boom piece of equipment. Now, I want you to imagine a Black American man. He has a boom boom piece of equipment. How fast, how many Black American men will be unalived? Do you understand that? How many even Black American men who've had concealed handgun license, right? Like for Fernando Castillo, who had a legal constitutional legalness handgun license in his car when you had a bad seed non-Black people of color who sit there and shot him unalive with his girlfriend or wife, I think a kid in the car, right? And then try to lie about it. Do you understand the sinister game of this, right? And so he has a boom boom piece of equipment, this violent Anglo adjacent Pretti, right? Who people have tried to sit there make it seem like that he's some angelic being. And you hear him saying, F you, and kicking the federal agent's car, that's vandalism, right? Property damage, right? But you got numbers of people within various such Panama's culture, however, other groups, and even some smattering of some lost versions of Black Americanism, the ones it applies to, act like they don't see nothing, right? That is some scary stuff. And it's an agenda for personnel within the Panama's culture, the ones it applies to. On a higher level, they want more border break illegal immigrants. They want more immigration type stuff like that. And even in those areas of categories, they definitely want more of the family members and friends and resources because they don't give a damn. They're about trying to get theirs and bring as many other immigrationist personnel, have more border break illegal immigrant family and friends and etc. in America, because in America is the #1 gold mine for many cultures and backgrounds to come over, and they're laughing. They're laughing because there's a whole group of a small number of big time controllers. They're wanting to try to push out as many Black Americans in positions as much as possible. Oh, you don't know the game.
It's also visible above his waistband. Here, he continues to stand at the scene. On the day he was killed, the Department of Homeland Security claims Pretti, a 37-year-old ICU nurse, approached officers holding a handgun. That claim has been contradicted by analysis of bystander videos from multiple news investigations, which can...
The point is, so the AGLL what? He came to a type of protest like this. And you see how these animals that was acting like this, non-Black Americans, by the way, because remember how when, what was his name? Rodney King was getting beat the hell down by those animals, right? Bad seeds, beating him down like he was an animal. And I was thinking one thing, there was another one up in New York at a detention facility. I think it was Robert Brooks, another Black American man that was getting just demon handled. I did a podcast on that, where the image is showing one of those bad seed animals kicking him. And you had all these animals around him sitting there holding him and beating him down, and other was around him just looking. And he became unalived. Right? You see how these little bad seeds are. So where is the outrage at legislators saying we demand the end of qualified immunity? Because remember, if the person is not doing wrong, they shouldn't have anything to hide, right? You said this goes. Are there ones that don't act like various bad seeds? Of course. The problem is that however numbers of times the bad seeds are allowed to sit there and control the outcome on various sections. And that's the big problem on that. But so, you know what? I'm just going to stop right here. I don't want to see no more of that. So the thing about it is, you saw what you saw, and you got people that like they didn't see what they sit there and saw.
Nothing. I know nothing. I know nothing.
Right? They know nothing but nothing. Right? But at the same time, you say, hey, man, you know, you want Black Americans to sit there and fight for immigration rights. You want Black Americans to sit there and fight for border break illegal immigrants. Don't give up. Border breaking illegal immigrants. You want Black Americans to fight for that? But then you say, hey, what are you going to do for Black Americans? What are they going to do? Right? It's like this right here. Colored waiting room, private property, no parking, driving through or turning around, colored. That means Black Americans, people. This is why I can't stand the word people of color, communities of color. It dilutes down Black Americans specifically. It is an agenda. It's like people talking Black and brown. Well, that's like chalkboard to me. I'm like, what in the HELL is that game? There is no such thing as Black and brown. There are numbers of Black folks that have Black Americans that have brown skin. Where's the Black and brown and Asian coalition? Where's the brown and red coalition? Where's the red and brown coalition? Where's the red and Joshnism coalition? Where's the brown and Joshnism coalition? Do you see how this game goes? And they look upon millions of Black Americans as ignorant to not see through this game. This is what they look at Black Americans collectively as monkeys, just not knowing nothing, right? Just trained like monkeys to see certain things they want. They want numbers of Black Americans to look at. And they know it's only a few exceptions of Black Americans who see through these tactics. And it's an insulting us to sit there, the stuff that happens to Black Americans, and you got however political figures jumping over trains and falling out over planes, sitting there trying to help out border break illegal immigrants with free resources, hotels, housing vouchers, helping out immigration personnel with businesses, helping out personnel, however number of organizations, uncalculable number, helping out with training in immigration and stuff like that. Oh, you know what? Forget that. You know what? I need to sit there and go back and finish some of that stuff in that video, because there is something else in there I wanted. Let me finish this up.
Concluded that Pretti was holding a phone, not a gun, when he was pinned to the street.
Oh, that's not it. That was something else. But I just want to show a few seconds more of that. But that's not what I wanted to show on that. There was another video that was sitting there showing this particular organization that was sitting there having some symptoms and stuff, sympatheticness for these border break illegal immigrants, numbers of immigration personnel, and oh my goodness, what's going on toward them is atrocious. But you'd be like, and they helping them out and everything. But you say, what are you doing for Black Americans then, who preceded them by centuries? What are you gonna do for them? Huh? That's the number one most hated group, right? Hateful laws and policies been going on for centuries, right? Segregation been going on for generations. Still pseudo form of segregation going on in various cities. Still bad cities doing bad things to Black Americans, right? I mean, you get the point, right? What are you gonna do about for them? Quietness. They don't want to talk about this either right here, as if that was a long time ago. Now, what I also wanted to sit there and show is this right here.
Who walked out of the Democratic convention formed their own party.
The Southern revolt against President Truman reaches its climax at Birmingham under the states' rights banner.
The so-called Dixiecrats nominated the South Carolina Governor Strom Thurmond as their presidential candidate.
There's not enough troops in the army to force the Southern people to break down segregation and admit the Negroes into our theaters.
Who walked out of the Democratic convention formed their own party.
The Southern revolt against President Truman reaches its climax at Birmingham under the states' rights banner.
The so-called Dixiecrats nominated the South Carolina Governor Strom Thurmond as their presidential candidate.
There's not enough troops in the army to force the Southern people to break down segregation and admit the Negroes into our theaters, into our swimming pools, into our homes, and into our churches.
I'm like this. So we're just going to pretend, right? We didn't hear that. And that was the 1940s. So that was still less than 100 years ago, because this is 2026. Let me sit there and show this again, the insulting of this. Well, you got these people talking about border break illegal immigrants and Alex Pretti, and look what the ICE people did. And you got him acting like a violent creature. I just showed you that video of him sitting there vandalizing the federal agent's car, kicking and stuff like that, breaking the light. You still got people acting like they didn't see nothing, right? Do you understand how crazy it sounds? But that means some people, them people got some psychosis problems, right? And like they didn't see that part, what I showed earlier. The thing about it is, what I also wanted to talk about, actually, let me get to something else. What I also wanted, let me show what it's like when this situations happen, like Renee Good situation, when the situation that happened with Alex Pretti, which is a topic subject, and you got people act like they still didn't see nothing, right? That's the insultingness toward millions of Black Americans. That's what people are doing, with few exceptions, because they know only a few exceptions of Black Americans see through the tactic, and they know how insulting it is. Just like this image right here of Alex Pretti, but look at the words. Must portray him as an angelic and wholesome person to be used as an anti-ICE martyr, but centuries of anti-Black American terrorism by bad C1s, then its excuses made, see through the tactics. Right? You start talking about, oh, and how many, anti-ICE. We need to fund we need to fund ICE. We need to fund our ICE. So you don't want no type of immigrationness going on, right? Do you understand this? How that sounds? Now they ain't gonna try that in Israelness. Just gonna try to play that game with that, with the generations of Palestinian and Jewish type of conflict, huh? And tell them open your borders up, open the gates up for the Palestine personnel. They should have openness to do whatever they want in Israel. They ain't playing that tactic. Go over there to North Korea and tell North Korea, open your doors up to South Koreans. Y'all basically the same people. What are you doing? Nope. You see this game? Hell. How about Africa? 50-some countries. Go tell them, hey, you know what? You got 50+ countries, man. Y'all should have any kind of borders. Anybody should be able to go anywhere they want to go within Africa. No borders. They'd be like, man, you don't get out of our faces. But something about in America, it is told that they must have open borders for no matter who comes over. Scammers, violence type personnel, right? It doesn't matter. Just come on over. Break immigration laws. No, for numbers of women, just go ahead, pop out babies left and right. Bam, automatic citizenship. Thanks off the 14th Amendment of the Constitution that was supposed to be for Black Americans. How many people come over for birth tourism from different countries, pop out babies, go back to their own different countries, and have dual citizenship. So let me go ahead and get to this particular also. Finish up on a few things I want to show you. But I want you to keep this in mind. Now, you know what? Let me show you this first. Yeah, that's right. Now, look at this. So they talking about anti-ICE and everything like that. But you start talking about how, like, when George Floyd happened, I'm going to get to that in just a little bit. And people talking about, well, what about defunding? People went crazy too. Oh my goodness. Anti-law enforcement. People know what I'm talking about. You had all kind of people talking about, oh my goodness, these people are anti-law enforcement. Oh man, Black Americans. They just need to stop being criminals. They just need to comply to orders. They need to obey authority. But when Alex Pretti, right, and Alex Pretti and these little lost freaking zoids of nonsensical behavior type personnel within section of the Panamanian culture who's out there doing these kind of stuff and protesting for border break illegal immigrants, protest for immigration rights. And you like, hey, like Renee Good, that did not follow laws and orders from the ICE agent to move out of the street to not impede what they were doing on immigration duties, right? Where's all the uproar at that part? Saying they should have followed, or Renee Good should have followed all orders from the ICE agent. What about Alex Pretti? Where's all the people saying, well, you know what? He should have followed orders to get out the way, right? You see how it goes. You see the animosity of the hypocrisy of that. Because if that was Black Americans doing that, oh my goodness, what's wrong with these Black American monkeys? I mean, Black American people. They're always talking about racism. My goodness. Won't they get a job? Okay, they said the same thing about those people sitting there protesting with border break illegal immigrants, right? Alex Pretti type crowd, Renee Good, they tell them the same thing? Huh? Majority of Black Americans have jobs. Quite a number of Black Americans have businesses. Do you understand that? That's a whole different topic. So the shooting of Charles Kinsey. Huh? Some people know, remember this one. And some people who are seeing this for the first time. Charles Kinsey was the Black American man hero. And he was taking care of this particular autistic child at this facility. All right. On July 18, 2016, Charles Kinsey, a behavioral therapist, was shot in the leg by a Bassey officer in North Miami, Florida, United States. Kinsey had been retrieving his 27-year-old autistic patient, Armando Rios Soto, who had run away from his group home. Some people, unfortunately, encountered the pair while they were searching for an armed person who wanted to unalive himself. Man, Kinsey was lying on the ground with his hands in the air and trying to negotiate between these Bassey officers and his patient. And he was shot. The Bassey officer who shot Kinsey said he had been aiming at the patient. Do you see how this looks? So, however, personnel with certain enforcement places are allowing people like this to be in certain sections of enforcement. I'm talking about the ones applies to, right? Who the Bassy officer believed was threatening Kinsey with a boom boom piece of equipment. Both Kinsey and his patient were unarmed. Does that look like he have a boom boom piece of equipment? Now, Alex Pretti, who they say had a concealed boom boom piece of equipment, well, it was lawful. I think they say he had another clip and maybe 50 or 60 rounds in that. Why do you need that again at this particular protest for border break illegal immigrants? Huh? For pro-immigrationists? And they kept trying to make sure to say, well, look, he had a legal right to carry. But if that had been a Black American man and he had a concealed handgun license, oh my goodness. Well, why did he need to bring it to that kind of protesting? What's wrong with these people? Black people always talking about racism. Do you see this goes, man? It's something very off about various sections of personnel within predominant culture in America. Quite a number of them are off. Something that's been caveman and cavewoman ingrained in quite a number of them to one. It applies to. Because there's been a small number within certain sections of the predominant culture who have actually lost their lives and who've also fought and say, look, man, this is wrong what you're doing to Black Americans, and salute to those ones, which are very small, and the ones who have lost their life. May they rest in peace. But they are a small number in comparison to a collective who don't give a damn about Black Americans, that they will sit there and make all the excuses in the world about earned reparations need to be given to Black Americans, but they won't say a dang thing about, well, why we still need to give reparations to what we call Native Americans. What about the Anglo Native Americans? Huh? What about that? The ones that put themselves on the Dawes Road and call themselves Native Americans. Look at the various Native American organizations. Look at their names. You say, well, that's not what we call an Indian name. Huh? You understand the game here, right? Do you understand? And no anti-Black American hate crime law. But a couple of years ago, generically, I don't even like utilizing the word in a generic way. They did within the last couple of years, they did an anti-hate crime bill for Asians, which is, I don't like even saying that, because Asia is a continent made up of dozens of countries and how many other thousands of islands and other places. But in the system, they got people all strict in the mentality to just say Asian in a very general fashion. There's Afro-Asian people, by the way. Know the game, people. Following the shooting, Kinsey, the Black American man, said he was handcuffed and left bleeding on the ground for 20 minutes without this Bassy enforcement personnel giving him medical aid. The incident received significant media attention. Wrong. Following the appearance of cell phone video footage, the officer who shot Kinsey, Jonathan Alita, that's a non-Black people of color, by the way, like people like playing generic people of color games, by the way, toward means the Black Americans the one that don't know the game, was arrested in 2017 and charged with attempted manslaughter and negligence. In June 2019, Alita was found guilty by jury of culpable negligence. One day after being found guilty, Alito was also fired from the police force. He was sentenced to probation and 500-word essay on policing after he went through training. 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. You get the point, right? Like he was a child. You know, he's infantile mentality. He didn't know any better, right? He ultimately completed a total of 5 months of probation and no prison time. After Alito was found guilty, Kinsey in the city of North Miami reached a settlement for undisclosed amount in a federal lawsuit Kinsey had filed. In February 2022, Alita's conviction was overturned. Godly boy, I tell you. You see this insulting? But you start talking about, well, you got to defund, these people say defund enforcement. They're not talking about defunding all enforcement people. But this is a game how they keep trying to portray it as people talking about you got to defund the police. They're not talking about all of them. Do you see the game? But if we start talking about defund ICE, yeah, we need to defund ICE. Defund ICE. Do you before what? Why? Oh, because they're doing unconstitutionality toward what? Toward Puerto Rico illegal immigrants, immigration personnel. Okay, so you're for open borders and for open immigration, for open Puerto Rico illegal immigrants who don't give a damn about you. Now look at this right here. It says immigrants built America. What an insult. And they know that millions of Black Americans, with few exceptions, the ones that are very gullible, who don't sit there and constructively roast this back and saying, who the freaker you are, talking about immigrants built America. What is an immigrant? Right? You see the generic terminology like black and brown, right? Black and brown. What's a brown person look like? When there are Black Americans also have brown skin. But they're going to tell you right here, immigrants built America. What? So where are they building America in the 1600s? I don't think so. Before Ellis Island was even, because that's the ground zero in New York when people talk about immigrants. Well, they saw the Statue of Liberty, and they sit there was like, oh my goodness, we arrived, fled. The Statue of Liberty was about the celebration of the freeing of Black Americans, people, which Black Americans still never freed. But you see the insulting of this? But they know it's not enough Black Americans to say, who the hell do you think y'all are? To say immigrants built America. There's no immigrants like that in the 1600s or the 1500s, in the 1700s like that, when Black Americans were sitting there building America and being treated like a monster while still expecting Black Americans to show patriotism. And Black Americans are some of the most patriotic people ever in America. Ever. You see the game, people, on this. The insulting of this. But again,
Nothing. I know nothing.
And that's how some people think like this. Right? Again, like this, let the Negro fight his own battles. His problems are not mine. I don't want to ally with him. Felix Terragino, the white Mexicano-American president of LULAC, 1956, 1960s. The primary numbers of immigration personnel in this country, especially of Hispanicism, is Mexicanos. It is a known thing for people knowing. Quite a number of Mexicanos, the ones applies to, hate the guts of Black Americans. Hate the guts, because numbers of Mexicanos, primarily the ones applies to, with few exceptions to them, they want to be Anglo so bad. And like Felix Terragino, the white Mexicano person right here, they were fighting to be able to be considered white. And decades later, many of them still do want to consider white. This is why you also have on the census non-Hispanic white. Let me say it again. This is why you have on the census non-Hispanic white. Because too many times you have Hispanics, they slide under the white, generic white banner. You see how this game goes, right? Now let a Black American who's born white and Black, let them sit there and pick white. And how many people say, no. Because the one drop rule still applies, people. They was like, hey, if you one drop of Black American, you're Black. Well, again, that's kind of outdated on certain things. Some things are true, some things are not. Right? But I'm saying to you is the illusion that some people have in thinking that things have truly changed in America toward Black Americans, and it hasn't. The thing has changed is allowability of more Puerto Rico illegal immigrants, more immigration personnel getting freebies, resources, helping them out first over Black Americans. When you start talking about reparations for Black Americans, people act like they don't know, act like they play dumb. But they had no problem giving reparations to what we call Native Americans. Huh? How many of those countries helping them build up different things? All that money I did over billions of resources went to Ukraine. Huh? White on white conflict. billions and billions of resources going to Ukraine. And how much of those billions don't even know where they went to? Do you understand that? But it's an insultingness to the Black American ancestors, right? Who sit there and fought and lost their lives to be treated as citizens as well. And you still got quite a number within Black Americanism who are sitting there rolling over, acting like they don't know any better, talking about the suppliers to, who are sitting there and don't demand their political figures saying to them, say, hold the hell up. So you expect Black Americans to sit there and vote like in this 2026 election, just to vote in generalness across the board for Democrats without any tangibilities. Well, if you don't do that, you must launch Trump. Well, what about Biden? When Biden said, if you don't know basically who to vote for between Trump and Biden, you ain't Black. And I'm like this. He didn't say if you're Hispanic, if you don't know who to vote for between Biden and Trump, you ain't brown. He didn't sit there and tell numbers of Asian personnel, which is very generic, what that's supposed to mean, because that's Afro-Asians. If you don't know who to vote for between Trump and Biden, you ain't Asian. He didn't sit there and tell numbers of Native Americans, hey, if you don't know the difference between voting for Trump and Biden, you ain't red, you ain't a Native American. Do you see this game? Nobody. They insulted. He didn't insult nobody. Biden didn't insult nobody else like that. To tell them if they don't vote for Biden, they ain't that culture. They ain't that race. But he said, if told Black Americans collectively, if you don't know who to vote for between Trump and Biden, you ain't Black. And on the Biden administration, also record numbers of border break illegal immigrants, right? You understand? Then society, in most parts of society, they are laughing at Black Americans by the millions. Like, again, immigrants built America. Again and again. Let me show what this is like when this shows up like this, and they know Black Americans collectively are not sitting there roasting these people back. Again, this is why I say it's an insult to the Black American ancestors who have lost their lives. It is an insult to even some of the living Black Americans. I'm like talking about certain age brackets, especially when you start getting your 80s and 90s and 100. Like the greatness of Viola Fletcher, one of the last few couple of ones survivors of the Tulsa race anti-Black American terrorism massacre that happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, early 1920s. And they wanted to try to get reparation, which was earned. And you had a kangaroo type of in courtness that was sitting there. The people I'm talking about supplies to just insulted them, basically made excuses on that. Do you understand that? This is 1920ish. This is after the American Revolutionary War. This is after the Constitution in 1776. And the insultingness of this year, 250 year anniversary of the founding of this country, 1776, and massive, gigantic celebrations. And you got the Tulsa race riot, anti-Black American race riot terrorism, in which you had higher numbers of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And they try to minimize that of Black Americans who were slaughtered. Also included numbers of Black American citizens that were slaughtered and shot down by KKK-minded, atrocious minions. And even to this day, some people don't even know, they were using planes to bomb this. Yes, they were using planes to bomb this upon the Black American citizens in Tulsa. Do you understand that this atrociousness? But you got people talking about, oh my goodness, this is the land of milk and honey and democracy. What? What I also wanted to show a few more things in closing. Is this also right? Oh, you know what? I gotta show this right quick from this guy too. This is from the guy, Charles Kinsey.
I'm like, I still got my hands in the air. I say, no, I just got shot. And I'm saying to myself, I'm like, sir, why did you shoot me? And his words to me, he said, I don't know. I was really more worried about him than myself, because I'm looking at, as long as I got my hands up, they're not going to shoot me. This is what I'm thinking. They're not going to shoot me. Wow, was I wrong?
Look at that. His hands are up. And he still got shot by a bad seed enforcement person. But you got people talking about Alex Pretti and Renee Good and how we need to defund ICE. But you have people talking about, well, we need to defund police, defund law enforcement, which of course you're not going to do that. You got people that lost their minds acting as if they're talking about all law enforcement, and you cannot do that regardless. Talking about defund agency or defund places that are allowing bad seeds to run amok, defunding them, people. But as soon as you say defund ICE, yeah, you need to defund ICE. But if you say defund the bad seeds, oh my goodness, you are non-patriotic, you anti-enforcement. You see this game goes when it's dealing with dealing with racial racism, anti-black terrorism. Then it's you are unpatriotic, you're against law enforcement. Oh boy. Okay, so I'm gonna show a couple more things and put some perspective as well. How about this one right here? Elijah McCain. The unalignment of Elijah McCain. Now, just look at this fellow. Just look at him, right? Half a buck and a half, right? Weight-wise. Elijah Jovan McClain. May his soul rest as well. Was a 23-year-old Black American man from Aurora, Colorado, who was unalive as a result of being illegally injected with 500 milligrams of ketamine by Bad Seed paramedic versions. After being forcibly detained by Bad Seed officers, he went into cardiac arrest and he died. 6 days later in the hospital, he had been walking home from a convenience store. 3 Bad Seed officers and 2 Bad Seed paramedics were charged with his unalivement. Both paramedics and one of the officers were convicted of negligent homicide. The other 2 officers were acquitted of all charges, right? The story goes, on August 2024, 3 Bad Seed Aurora officers confronted Black American McClain after responding to a call by an Aurora civilian, most likely Anglo, right? Or Anglo adjacent. Or could be an immigrationist. That's a whole different personnel. And that's a pro-border break illegal immigrant. About an unarmed person wearing a ski mask that looks sketchy. You see how that goes, right? The 3 bad police officers who were involved in this incident, these 3 little cretins on that, could be that name right there. That can be Anglo adjacent or non-Black people of color. All said that their body cameras were mysteriously, right, knocked off during a struggle with McClain. Inconvenient, right? All 3 cameras just happened to pop off, right? McClain was forcibly held to the ground with his hands cuffed behind his back. After which, this Bad Seed version twice applied a chokehold. Upon arrival, these Bad Seed version paramedics, these are little right here. That name right there looks like an Anglo adjacent or non-Black people of color. Mr. Ketamine, later determined to be an in excess of therapeutic dosage. That even cretin word right there to mix that in to say therapeutic dosage to McClain to sedate him. While on the scene, McLean went to cardiac arrest 3 days after arriving at the hospital. He was declared brain unalive and was removed from his life support on that situation. McLean's initial autopsy was inconclusive, and the cause hold on for a second. I'll check that right here. Second right here. Give me a second. Right there. McLean's initial autopsy was inconclusive, and the cause of unalivement was listed as undetermined. The bad seed versions met with the coroner before his announcement, and however personnel and also were present during the autopsy as a result of the lawsuit by several news agencies. An amended autopsy report was released in September 2022 that listed the cause of unalivement as complication of ketamine administered following forcible restraint. How they tried to cover it up. Right, look at this fellow. But at the same time, where's the outrage at that? Where's the outrage of saying, hey man, no more qualified immunity? Right? What about anti-American black crime, anti-black American hate crime law? Nope. Huh? You see how this goes, right? You see how this goes, but again,
nothing. I know nothing.
You see how the insulting of the situation, how they continue to keep portraying toward Black Americans, and the hatred they have for Black Americans collectively, because there are some coons and sellouts and some naive ones within certain sections of certain sections of Black Americanism once applies to. And this is why these continuously internal problems keep happening, right? There is not enough Black Americans who are tired of the blatant racial racism, anti-American Black terrors that continue to keep happening to Black Americans. The internal Black pain trauma is immensely toward millions of Black Americans, with few exceptions, right? That it has gotten millions within Black Americanism to sit there and be like, they don't want to see anything dealing with talking about racial racism, hatredness toward Black Americans. But how many within Black Americanism will fight for border break illegal immigrants, will fight for immigration personnel rights, will fight for tethers? They had the skin of Black, right? But they had the hatefulness toward Black. Some of the ones applies to, right? Because they fled themselves from their countries and places, right? That's how it goes. Now, let's continue. Actually, I had a lot more I was going to show you on this, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to show a couple of more. Atiana Jefferson. May her soul rest. The unalivement of Atiana Jefferson. Atiana Queese Jefferson was a 20-year-old Black American woman who was fatally unalive inside her home by a bad seed officer in Fort Worth, Texas, in the early morning of October 12, 2019. Some bad seeds arrived at her home after a neighbor called a non-emergency number stating that Jefferson's front door was open. To the ones applies to by their actions, the one who did it. Police body camera footage shows officers walking outside the home with flashlights for a few minutes. Then one officer yells, "Put your hands up. Show me your hands," while discharging his weapon through a window. Just like that. So the bad seed found a handgun near the Jefferson's body, which according to her 8-year-old nephew, she was pointing toward the window before she was being shot. How many numbers of personnel was in various Anglonism, if they heard somebody outside just saying something real fast and they had their own boom piece of equipment, right? Somebody said, "Put your hands up," real fast, and just like that, and they'll freak out. How many would shoot toward that window themselves? Right? So it goes. But when Black Americans, the very extremely few that would do that, then that Black American are made to be like they are the guilty one. So it goes, right? On October the 14th, 2019, Officer Aaron Demon the shooter, resigned from the Forward Police Department and was arrested on a murder charge. On December 20, 2019, Dean was indicted for murder. Jefferson was Black American. Officer who shot was white. You know, watch that too, because it's white Americans, white adjacent Wells too. Prompting news outlets to compare, watch this, Jefferson's shooting to the September 2018 murder of bottom non-Black American John in nearby Dallas. You have to watch this. See, there are some too many tellers running around trying to hide themselves on a generic Black category, right? You have to watch these people. These are some cretins as well, the ones it applies to, right? They can't fix their problems in their own lands, their homelands they fled from, and they'll sit there, especially the ones who don't have an accent and the outside look can be comparable to a Black American. Oh, you saw that they hot under that, right? But have a contempt for Black Americans because they're jealous of Black Americans, right? Because they fled them places and Black Americans don't flee. On December 15, 2022, Dean was found guilty on the lesser offense of manslaughter. See, he was found guilty on the lesser offense of manslaughter. He was sentenced to 11 years, 10 months, and 12 days imprisonment, and apparent reference by the jury to the month and day of the incident. Don't get that crap confused. 9,000% don't face any kind of justice or get a slap on the hand. Don't let people play this little tactic. But I wanted to read something for you. The nephew's account. Jefferson's 8-year-old nephew told authorities that while playing video games, they heard noises outside the window. The nephew testified that Jefferson took her boom piece of equipment from her purse and walked to the window, holding at her side while looking out the window. Before she was unalived by Demon, the nephew's account was used as a basis for the arrest warrant. This person right here stated that it makes sense that she would have a boom piece of equipment if she felt that she was being threatened or there was someone in the backyard. According to her personnel, the firearm was lawfully owned, and Jefferson had a concealed handgun license. The nephew testified that the front door was open because they were making hamburgers and they had burned, so the door were left open to let the smoke out. You saw this goes, right? And they try to make sense that she was wrong. Toward the ones who try to make sense like within various sections of the plant-based culture once applied to, and however other people, right? Well, she should have complied. What? That bad C saying what? Put your hands up. Show me your hands, and almost immediately he shot within that window, unaliving her. See, the thing about it is, let me sit there and relay this right quick for a second. There has to be more Black Americans in law enforcement. There has to be. See, logical analysis, not feeling analysis. See, the ones that have the feelings analysis can go to HELL. That you must have your own kind reality one thinking in law enforcement. This is why you have many more agents, whatever that's supposed to mean, because there's Afro agents. This is why you have a lot more agents in police agency. This is why you have various types of Hispanicism, various types of Jawishism in law enforcement, because you must have your own kind, and more that's about their own kind. You understand that? But they tell Black Americans, oh my goodness, why you want to be a police officer? Do you understand how ignorant that sounds? Right? But when things happen, you want to call a police officer and you get some people of color, communities of color showing up, and you don't understand how that sounds. Right? Just like in politicalness. Yes, you have a lot of sellout political figures and stuff like that. That's bought and sold out. Yes, it is. But you still must have numbers of your own people, not sellouts and gullibles, what it applies to. In politics, they make laws, people. Do you understand that? So, but the system and various sections, even with the Black Americanism, had told, well, no, don't you get in politics, Black man, Black woman. Don't you become a police officer, Black man, Black woman. So what the hell you supposed to do? Just walk around, act like nothing is going on? Do you understand how crazy the hell that sounds? But this is the kind of game, messed up mental psychosis that also affects quite a number of people within American Blackism. Not to see through this, right? Now, also, right here, Eric Gardner. But remember, anti-ICE rhetoric, right? The unalignment by an Anglo by ICE toward an Anglo woman and her rough-looking wife, right? A lesbian wife, very rough-looking, bad mouth, thinks she was big bad to the ICE agent. And when they got shown, you ain't big bad. Even though Renee Goods, the car they were in, were blocking up the street and stuff like that and agitating immigration enforcement. They were sitting there impeding lawfulness of immigration outcomes. It does kind of stuff, even though the car that they were driving, Renee Goods and her bad looking, rough looking lesbian wife, once applies to on this situation, knowing that she was doing wrong. And so when the officer was trying to open up the door and they sped off, right, basically almost hitting the officer, and you got people lost their freaking mind. No accountability for that part, right? But if it was Black American women in a lesbian relationship, they would have been sitting there making them victims. They'd have making them the problem, being guilty. And Alex Pretti, right, the Anglo adjacent type personnel, right, causing havoc, showing as if trying to make it sound like he was an angelic figure. And you saw the video I said and showed you who he's nothing but a violent cretin, kicking the hell out of that government official car, right? And then spitting toward the vehicle, but primarily toward that ICE officer, right? Which is kind of hateful. That's a hate crime, by the way. You understand that? And he had a boom piece of equipment that you can easily see on this hip. Oh my goodness. Well, that's lawful. But at the same time, how many Black Americans had lawful handgun on them? Lawful? You understand that? And don't you look at certain type of news figures and places who with they little silly ass agendas? They'll sit there, something happen, right, to whoever person, especially Black American. Well, they had a gun on them. So the hell what? As if having a gun makes it illegal. But you see, their system is so brilliant with its cretin demonicism mantra-ness, right? They make people automatically think if they had a boom piece of equipment on them, especially as Black American, that's automatically guilty. As if constitutionality that you don't have a right to bear arms. Do you understand how that sounds? Right? You mean if it's Black Americans, it's not constitutional, right? They ain't supposed to have the right to bear arms if you're Black American. You said it goes, right? But if you say something about, the defunding of Harvard enforcement, again, that's anti-patrioticness. You hate law enforcement. But when it's, especially when you hear somebody Black American saying that, as if there's no Anglo person who said that, right? Right. But at the same time, when the mantra of anti-ICE-ness is shown by Harvard numbers of political figures, Harvard numbers of entities, organizations, etc. Yeah, that's right. Defund ICE. Then it's like there's no such thing as, that's anti-enforcement. That's not patriotic. You see the game, right? Because they want border breaking openness for illegal immigrants to come through more. They want immigrationists to happen more because the United States is the #1 country on this planet that allows more immigrationists to come to America is the United States, people. And how many of them come from places they fled from? And they're getting benefits and freebies, housing vouchers, free food stamps, free child care. Do you understand? Helping them out in programs, open up business for them, going to colleges, allowing them to have monetary resources to go to college. It wants to do that. This helping them out regardless. Taxpayers' money, direct, indirect. That's reparations, unearned reparations. But Black Americans who built this country before their grandmother, grandfather, great-grandfather, great-grandmother, great-great-grandmother, great-grandfather, great-great even existed in the inkling of thought pattern in America. Right? Can't get no reparations. Can't get sit there and get anti-American hate crime law passed. Do you see how this goes? Like this situation here. The unalive of Eric Gardner. Actually, I'm gonna play one more or two more. I'm gonna finish up. It has some more people. I'm gonna have some more people I want to show, but I don't want this to go too much more longer on this topic. On July the 7th, 2014, Eric Gardner and Black American. See, you got to watch that generic African American. That's played out now. That's played out. It's a new time because you can have Elon Musk. I think Elon Musk is South African, so he comes over to America, right? He can have a baby or babies. I'm just giving an example. Well, they're African American, right? You can have an Indian from India because quite a number in various parts of Africa are certain numbers of Chinese. You get the point. Lebanese, Afghanistan. You get the point. Can have a baby over there in Africa, come to America and be called African American. I'm telling you, that is despicable toward me. But at the same time, it's a brilliant tactic. And there ain't no means of Black Americans haven't salted that game yet. African American. That's played out. Now, again, it's nothing wrong using African American when it is a context purpose, meaning that you're talking about really Black people in America. So you just have to watch that a little bit. My preference now is to say more Black American. Now, before I would say African American or African ancestry, Native Black. And there are points when I say that. It's not a one thing or another thing. The primary terminology is Black American, right? A Black American man who was unalive in the New York borough of Staten Island by Daniel Anglo adjacent Panatello, just like Pretti, by the way, flocks of a feather, stay together. A New York City Police Department Bassy officer version, after putting him in a prohibited, illegal chokehold while arresting him. Video footage of the incident generated widespread national attention and raised questions about the use of force by law enforcement. Oh, what am I doing? Hold on. Oh, give me a second. I think I did something incorrectly. Hold on for a second. Let me share this again. I may have done. Let me go back here. Oh, I don't know if you saw that or not because I was sitting there reading stuff. I don't know if I actually shared that. If I didn't, so sorry if I didn't. So I'm reading it right now. You see it on the screen now. So if I didn't see it, then if you didn't see it, sorry about that. But now you kind of see it. If you did see it, that's fine. I'm just going over it again. So unalivement of Eric Gardner. Make sure I know. Okay, a Black American man who was unalived in the New York City borough of Staten Island by Daniel Anglo Jason Panatello something. A Bassy version of NYPD after putting him in a illegal chokehold while arresting him. Video footage of the incident generated widespread national attention and raised questions about the use of force by law enforcement. NYPD officer, the bad ones versions, approached Gardner on July the 17th of suspicion of selling single cigarettes from packs without tax stamps. After Gardner told the police that he was tired of being harassed and that he was not selling cigarettes. Right? Either way, right? Watch the games, right? Excuses that they trying to portray. The officer's bad seat version attempted to arrest Gardner when Panatello, the Anglo adjacent one, placed his hands on Gardner. Gardner pulled his arms away, which most people Panatello, especially, he didn't do anything. Then placed his arm around Gardner's neck and wrestled him to the ground. Does that sound kind of almost familiar in a reverse kind of way, don't it? George Floyd. Just with the knee version. With multiple officers pinning him down. Gardner repeated the words, "I can't breathe," 11 times while lying face down on the sidewalk. After Gardner lost consciousness, he remained lying on the sidewalk for 7 minutes. Does that not sound like something similar, George Floyd? Huh? While the Bassy officers waited for ambulance to arrive, Gardner was pronounced unalived at a hospital at a hospital area approximately 1 hour later. Do you understand the egregiousness that is consistently going on toward Black Americans by the millions? And I'm not talking about the ones that are gullible or naive or ignorant to not understanding the amount of racial racism, anti-Black American terrorism that's happening every day. And looking the other way, pretending it happened does not make it go away for Black Americans. See, you ain't gonna play that little tactic with numbers of Jewish personnel, right? The one supply student that play certain tactics. They'll sit there and tell you anti-Semitic real fast. You know, you say, what does a Semitic person look like? As that great Dr. Clark made a great video saying who exactly is a JEW. It's a great video. I tell people, take a look at that on that, which is the Black American super scholar, right, on this situation. You better not sit there and tell them to forget the Holocaustness, which, by the way, the bad Hitler man learned from bad versions of KKK-minded people in America. He learned the best, right, of how to sit there and do bad things to people from bad versions of within KKK-minded type people within various sections of America. Do you understand that? From various sections of the predominant culture once obliged to, right? You better not tell them no games to forget about the past. They're not playing that. And what about what we call Native Americans? You better not tell them, y'all start talking about the white man took your land. How long this has been going on? The Trail of Tears about 200 years ago. Stop talking about that. Huh? Get over the past. What you need reparations for? Huh? You see how that game goes, right? But you start reparations for Black Americans. I ain't got anything to do with slavery. Look at this. Look at that. Look at that. Look at this. Huh? Huh? But no anti-American Black hate crime bill, right? But you saw saying talking about, oh my goodness, we need to defund Harvard enforcement. Oh, that's anti-patrioticness. You hate law enforcement. Fools, they're talking about ones in law enforcement that are bad seeds and places that are allowing this to happen, to defund them. Oh my goodness, we should be doing that. It's about training. After they went through training for 6 months, 8 months, a year, they need more training? What should be logical on things? Because they were bad before they went in law enforcement. Let me say this again. You don't change who you are deep down inside. If you were a KK-minded person, anti-American Black, before you went into law enforcement, you are still the same one in law enforcement. If you're a KK-minded regardless, before you went in law enforcement, you're the same person in there. You understand? That don't change anything. Actually, it makes it worse, because then you have a booming piece of equipment in the badge. You understand that? I get tired of not knowing this number. I get tired of certain numbers of within Black Americans not knowing these games that's being played. But at the same time, how many will jump up and down about border break illegal immigrants and fighting for their rights and fighting for immigration type personnel who don't give a damn about Black Americans? I got 2 more things I want to show. I'm gonna finish it up. Which one to show? Actually, I thought I had more, but it's okay. Okay, it's okay. I'm gonna play this last one on this one because this is definitely a big time one. Since this is relating to Minnesota, that is George Floyd, and this is the last one because there are some all kind of sinister games and mantras and delusionary minimization tactics that happen. Look at this demon right here, this bad seed, like he was out on a day of a picnic. Derek Demon, super demon seed, inhuman Chauvin, who was an officer, a bad seed officer, on the neck a Black American man, George Floyd. At one time, it was 8 minutes and I think 40 some plus seconds. And they adjusted to that to almost a minute later. And his little demon knees on back of this black man's neck for almost 10 minutes. Nobody else in America has ever had to go through this of any consequentiality of equalness, of hatred, as Black Americans have been going through for centuries. There is no videos in a collective way of a demon like him putting his knees on what we call an Asian, whatever that's supposed to mean, because that's generically, because Asia is a continent. You won't find this or find what we call Native Americans, whatever that's supposed to mean, because there are quite a number of white Native Americans. You won't sit there and find basically collectively a cretin demon like this bad seed having his demon knees for almost 10 minutes on what we call Mexicans. Right? A black man I'm talking about on one of their knees on the back of one of those groups of people, immigration personnel. You get the point, right? Huh? Because first of all, you're gonna pay the price. Right? In this system, they be like, you ain't gonna do that to, especially what show the video of a black man with his knee on the back of an Anglo man or Anglo adjacent man for almost 10 minutes. And he has not paid the price for that. Do you understand? The murder of Black American man George Floyd. On May 25th, 2020, George Floyd, a 46-year-old Black American man, was murdered by this demon, Bad C. Derek Chauvin, a 44-year-old white officer in Minneapolis, Minnesota, right? Because remember, it ain't good. We talking about the topic. And Alex Pretti, people jumping up and down about two Anglo adjacent personnel unlawed by ICE, and people went crazy as hell, but they didn't see that these people were agitating and impeding ICE duties, huh? Do you understand that? And they wanted to defund. They want defunding of ICE. But the same people, you say, hey, what were you doing about this? Where's all that defund, however bad version of police version places? Where are they at? Floyd had been arrested after a store clerk reported, and by the way, immigration is store clerk, by the way, of how many of them get taxpayer money, huh? How many of them get various types of reparations, not unearned reparations, to open up these stores in predominantly Black neighborhoods and things like that. You get the point I'm getting at. But you start talking about reparations for Black Americans before these damn fleas even arrived in America, huh? Then you got people saying, pull your own self up by your own sailboat straps, right? Pull yourself up by your own your mountain climber boots. Put your own boots up. After a store clerk, an immigration clerk reported that he had made a purchase using a counterfeit $20 bill. Chauvin knelt on Demon Chauvin knelt on Floyd's neck for over 9 minutes. Derek, the demonic cretin Chauvin, knelt, Bassy officer version, knelt on Floyd's Black American's neck for over 9 minutes while Floyd was handcuffed and lying face down in the street. I want you to understand. Now, put your hands on your freaking back and pretend you're handcuffed. And you have a friend or family member. Well, no, don't do that. And you imagine, and you imagine somebody put their knee on your back or your neck just like this for almost 10 minutes. Two other police officers, Bad C's. This is another game. J. Alexander Coing and Thomas Lane, assistant and Chauvin and restraining Floyd. Lane had also pointed a firearm at Floyd's head before he was handcuffed. A fourth officer, Tutal, a people of color fleer from whatever place, right? I think he's Hmong, right? That's a whole different topic, right? There's some good Hmong people and there's some bad ones. So a 4th officer, 2-town, prevented bystanders from intervening. So you got this 2-town, a people of color, communities of color, fleer, parents fled from where they came from, got himself inside, was able to allow himself, allowed him to get inside the police department. Oh, you best believe he's for his people. And he learned from the best KKK-minded people training him, the one that did stuff, training him incorrectly. And he was preventing what Black Americans basically from center intervening. Do you understand this disgusting tactic they do? And he started making excuses, act like that. Oh, well, you know, man, I didn't want to cause no problem. You see, I'm talking about, right? Many of them are very cowards inside. And they do look upon certain numbers of personnel within the Panamese culture as their gods. And this right here, J. Alexander Tether, pseudo Tether Coin. They try to make it seem like that he was a black man. You go look up, he's black. The hell he was not. His mama was white and his dad was Nigerian. That ain't black American man. But you have to watch these little sinister ass people. It's like when they try to portray Obama, and again, he was used a certain way. It was the time that he was utilized to get forth numbers of Black Americans. The first Black president, and it could even have a Black American father and say a white mother, if they was going to do that tactic. His mom was white and his dad was Kenyan. Do you understand that? So they slapped the faces of so many millions of Black Americans. And the thing about it is the first 4 years, it was understandable because it was like surprising. Finally, a Black American man that wasn't Black American man, because outside appearances, you really couldn't tell no damn difference. That's a whole different game. And they found out within that first 4 years, he did nothing for Black Americans. But he sat there and made sure to get in help same-sex marriages. And he helped out border break illegal immigrants and helping their kids break border immigration laws. Because he came up with a DACA program, deferred action for childhood arrivals. That was under Obama's administration, which basically was talking about how border break illegal immigrants who brought their kids or those kids unaccompanied minors at a certain time frame, then they basically get temporary protection status in America. Do you understand that? Which also applies to border break illegal immigrants. I did a whole topic show on that too. Don't quote on that, but I think if the person can be almost like 30 some years old, and if it was a certain time frame that they came over, or they parents or guardian, somebody brought them over, it was like up to 30 some years old, they still was able to get under DACA program. But when it's about Black Americans, he did nothing. No reparations, no anti-American Black hate crime law, or nothing. So he showed his true non-Black colors, Black American colors. Do you understand that? So this guy, he portrayed J. Alexander Coin. They show pretend he was a Black man. He's not a Black American man. Again, his father was Nigerian. And by the way, he was an absentee Nigerian. Oh, they don't want to talk about them. Obama's father, and he had a Caucasian mother. Obama's mother was white. His father was Kenyan, and his father was a worthless absentee type of father. Oh, but they like trying to sit there and portray Black American males as not in the kid's life. And it's been proven in studies that Black American males are actually the most involved parents related to males out of any coaching backgrounds. Involved people, not just being there, being in the house is one thing. There are quite a number of fathers in the house of different cultures, but that don't mean they active fathers, people. So be it Black Americans are in the house or Black Americans are not in the house, or say they non-custodial fathers, they are still the most involved in their kids' life. Oh, they don't want to talk about that. Right? Before being placed on the ground, Floyd had exhibited signs of anxiety, complaining about claustrophobia, and been unable to breathe. That sounds familiar, don't it? After being restrained, he became more distressed, still complaining of breathing difficulties. The knee on his neck, the fear of imminent death. I want you to imagine that. You put your arms around, you put your feet, your hand around your neck, and you squeeze and till it gets to the point where you start freaking out and you think somebody, and you imagine that going for 10 minutes. Huh? And by the way, you'll be out after a few minutes, like George Floyd. After several minutes, Floyd stopped speaking. For the last few minutes, he lay motionless and coined the Nigerian, the plagiarized black man who was not black man. He wasn't black American. His father was Nigerian, absentee father, and his mother was white. Found no pulse when urged to check. Chauvin, demon Chauvin, ignored bystanders' pleas to lift his knee from Floyd's neck. Yes, on that video, wait, no, get off his neck. He was sitting there just doing what he was doing. Let me tell you something. Another country, if that was happening, no, that wouldn't happen. First of all, do you understand that? And if it was a black American man, officer, who was on the neck of an Anglo man or Anglo adjacent man for almost 10 minutes, you think that would have been allowed? And there was a bunch of various numbers of males within the predominant culture or Anglo adjacent culture that have sat back and allowed a Negro officer to have his knees on the back of a white male for 10 minutes? For almost 10. Do you understand that? The next day after the video was recorded by witnesses and security cameras became public, the Minneapolis Police Department fired all 4 officers, which means nothing. 2 autopsies and 1 autopsy review found Floyd's death to be homicide. On March 12, 2021, Minneapolis agreed to pay $27 million to settle a wrongful unlawful lawsuit brought by Floyd's family. On April 20th, Chauvin was convicted of unintentional. You see this word? See, let's not go past that word. You said this goes, right? He was convicted of unintentional. See that word, right? Second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. And on June 25th, he had been sentenced to 22 and a half years in prison. All 4 officers face, well, see, go to hell. A rare person here and there that get justice like that. And we're going to see if he's going to stay in there for all 22 and a half years. All 4 officers face federal civil rights charges. Because here we go. In December 2021, Chauvin pleaded guilty to federal charge of violating Floyd's civil rights by using unreasonable force and ignoring his serious medical distress. Because he was told, hey, man, look, you got to do something. Oh, he was told, you best believe that. Let's not pretend. Let's go back and think about Rodney King when they were acquitted. Those Bad Seat officers were acquitted, if I remember correctly. The 3 other officers were later convicted of violating Floyd's rights. Lane pleaded guilty and made 2020. Lane, the other Anglo officer, pleaded guilty in May 2022 to state charge of aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter and was sentenced on September 21st, 2022 to 22 years too, right? Huh? Nope. To 3 years in prison to be served concurrently with the federal sentence of 2.5 years. You see how that goes, right? Coined the Nigerian and white mixture, not black American, pleaded guilty on October 24, 2022 to state charges of aiding and abetting manslaughter and was sentenced to what, 20-some years too, right? Nope. 3.5 years in prison. Do you see the insulting of this? Tao, the little coward that slides under communities of color and non-black people of color game, waived his right to a jury trial on the state charge of lieu of a review of the evidence of a judge. He was found guilty of aiding and abetting manslaughter in a written verdict delivered on May the 2nd, 2023, and sentenced to what, 22 something years to 4 3/4 years in prison. This is the thing where, do you see this? You see how you see this disgusting tactic? And this is where people try to play this little sidetrack game on this. Floyd's unalive by the demon, Derek Chauvin, and his 3 little henchmen led to worldwide protests against police brutality, police racism, and lack of police accountability. Do not let people play this little disgusting freaking tactic. It was good to see people that were outraged in various parts of this planet, right? However, how many were just doing that to be seen? And there are ones who were doing that were legitimately outraged, and salute to those people. However, this just happened. This is one of so many racial racism, anti-black terrorism that happens to black males every month in some place. Every month, black American males are going through hell by bad seed virgins every month, people. George Floyd has happened to be at this level, right, people? I showed you talk about Eric Gardner, right? I talked about that already. Putting a legal chokehold on that. There was no worldwide outrage like that, not at that level. And this was before George Floyd. And several bad seed officers were participating in that. Huh? Do you understand, people? What about after George Floyd, of the many black American males who've been victims of anti-black Americanism by bad seed virgins? And numbers of black American women too. But it's primarily black American males, gigantically, that are treated as inhuman by bad seeds. But expected to sit there and protest for border break illegal immigrants and immigration personnel that have their own agenda? Do you understand, people? There's an agenda going on, and they do not want black Americans to see through the game on this situation.
I know nothing. Nothing. I know nothing.
Yes. But again, when you say, hey, what are you going to do for black Americans, since you want black Americans to sit there and fight for illegals? I want you to just think about that. Look what's going on. The situation happened with the El Mencho guy, whatever the guy named, who was one of the leading cartelist personnel, mega criminal of Harvard organizationists, and he was captured. I don't go on, that's a whole different topic in itself. But at the same time, he was captured, and there was war-torn stuff going all over Mexico. How many dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of people lost their lives, and how many hundreds and hundreds of cars were burned after the ramification of him being captured, and he became unalive with a couple of his bodyguards, right? But how many personnel that come across that border from Mexico are violent and scamming to what the ones applies to, breaking immigration laws? How many other people from various sections of Africa, I'm talking about the ones applies to, that break border immigration laws, right? That beg to come over to America on certain visas, lottery visas. Oh, they don't want to talk about that. But at the same time, they want to tell you, oh, that person in Nigeria, they're so educated. Go to hell. Nigeria is made up of how many tribes, and it got various tribalism factions going on, higher corruption is going on. And you can have the best college in Kenya and Nigeria, and you sit there, Ghana, and you look at the world that's a whole topic in itself. And you look at the world classification of best colleges on this planet, and they not even in the top 50. So we're not going to play that tactic. And again, this is not about some of the good Nigerians, good number of Ghanaians, Ghanaians, good numbers of Kenyans, good numbers of Ethiopians, good numbers of Somalians. I don't go on all that. That's a whole different topic. Because primarily when we talk about Somalians, many of them are scamming. And they came just like certain numbers in Nigeria. The ones applies to Nigerians is the biggest group of Africans that are allowed to come to America, right? I don't like even just saying that generically, because you say, what's tribe, right? Nigeria is not just Nigerians. They're made up of many tribes. Many of them don't even like each other. But the point I'm making, people, is that in closing, you got so many people that look at Black Americans as fools, with few exceptions. You know, Black Americans come from the most magnificence of contributions in America. And nobody can compare to what Black Americans have contributed to this history in America. Nobody. And you look at like this image in the front, have to go through this kind of stuff, former segregation. This stuff is going on still in the 50s and 60s, people. This is after World War I, after World War II, going to the Vietnam War. Do you understand? Before many still immigrants even exist in America like that. Before many, before many immigration personnel would even thought about on a big scale like that. Immigration numbers in the 1950s, 1960s would have been minuscule. Just like numbers we call border break illegal immigrants, right? Even though it's definitely around, it would have been small numbers. But the system opened its doors up to say, especially after the 60s and 70s, they say, you know what? Slowly, but we got to get more immigration personnel. We got to get more border break illegal immigrants to push out basically numbers of Black Americans. And the ones we call Anglo adjacent, there are sections of Irish, sections of Scottish, sections of even Georgians, the ones it applies to, that were not considered Anglo people. They were outside starters. And they told Harvard numbers, if you want to be within our sectionality of Angloism, once applies to, we're not talking about you ones that the fear of you that think Black Americans should have rights, right? If you like that, don't even think about trying to call yourself Anglo, right? Now, I don't go now. That's a whole different topic, because there's ones that pretend and stuff like that. And the ones that say, yes, they want to be truly part within Angloism, then you're going to have to sit there and pledge yourselves, right, to the KKK creed of no matter what, always have hatred for Black Americans, direct or indirect. Do you understand that? Yes, we understand that. And they were allowed to come under the generic Anglo flag. See, when you know what you know they can't play tactics. They can deflect, but don't matter. That doesn't change the truth. And again, to some of the few amount of personnel within the Panama-based culture that don't represent the collective, salute to them. The ones that also lost their lives, right? May their souls rest. And even right now in 2026, to some of the ones within the Panama-based culture who say it's wrong, which I'll be doing to Black Americans, salute to them. Those are extremely few. However, you don't get no cookies and cream ice cream for thinking that. That's a lifetime situation to have that mentality. And there are ones within certain parts of Panama-based culture who say, well, forget that crowd. Forget that. And they go back to showing their trueness, right? Which is dormantness of anti-American Black, the ones it applies to. And so that makes even the fear amount of Anglos who are trueness relating, or let me phrase it, that makes it even smaller, the amount of Anglos in Americanism who say they might be Anglos, but they don't represent the collective, and that they are willing to lose their lives to fight for Black Americans justice. Now, salute to them. Those are very small. And even to some other small entities, other groups, which is extremely smaller, salute to them. Right? Because when it comes down to it, they look upon America as the gift of the golden horse. Just get to America and they will help you get all kind of resources and benefits. Now, they won't sit there and help Black Americans collectively, right? Actually, about 99.899%. They won't help Black Americans who sit there and help build this freaking country from scratch more than anybody else besides certain ones within put on its culture. They won't sit there and give what is earned reparations, make all kinds of excuses in the world. May the great the great godmotherness, Viola Fletcher, who was one of the very small numbers of, again, Tulsa anti-American racial racism terrorism massacre that happened when she was alive. She was one of the small amount of ones that were survivors. And when they brought forth trying to get reparations, they were basically slapped in the face by the person who know who they are, who basically told them that, well, that was a long time ago. When the Tulsa race riot, anti-American, Black American racial racism terrorists happened, 1920s. That was before World War II, people. That was before World. That was actually before. That was actually going into World War One. This around that time frame when it started to end. So the Tulsa anti-American racial racism massacre toward Black Americans was going on before the bad versions of Hitler even came to existence, because he didn't become the chancellor of Germany until the 1930s, and he wasn't grabbing what we call Jewish people until close to the 40s. Do you understand that? And they get reparations. Many get reparations right now still, way from over there in Germany or Poland, other places that had concentration camps. How many of them survive, which is dwindling? They're getting reparations. How many of them get taxpayer American reparations? How many of those survivors, small amounts on America, and they get reparations from taxpayers? How many of them do? Indirect or direct? But at the same time, what we call Native Americans, one applies to, how many of them get reparations? Hundreds of tribes, sub-tribes, a whole different game in itself, get reparations over generations. And they're told, I ain't got anything to do with slavery. I ain't got anything to do with removing you from reservations. You see the game, people. And they know, they look at Black Americans by the millions and say, those silly Negroes by the multi-millions, with few exceptions, don't even understand what we're doing. I thank you for tuning in to the Real CP Show.